Hello, Ricardo Baeza-Yates. It's so nice to see you on this
Yes, thank you for the
podcast
invitation.
today. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm very excited about the work you have already done as part of the AI Institute. And specifically today, we're going to focus on the work you're doing in AI ethics. Tell us a little bit about your work and what the Institute is all about.
Yeah, so the Institute for Experiential AI, it's focusing on trying to have a single face of AI for all Northeastern University. The main place is Boston, but we are distributed in many campuses from the west coast of the US and up to London. And we are doing applied research that tries to help companies and other institutions to do responsible AI, from the ethics principles to the governance to auditing their software to basically the whole life cycle of the software. And one of the main topics, although we have also groups working on health, life sciences, and also climate, we're working on generative AI and also responsible AI.
I'm especially interested in your work in generative AI, and there has been so much talk about generative AI in general. Um, it's all about the buzz, but what are some of the other considerations? What are the things you're thinking about as part of the Institute?
Yeah, so generative AI has so many opportunities to do good things if it's used well, but we are afraid of the things that shouldn't be used to. For example, today we know that for example, chatbots make many mistakes when you ask about facts. So it's not a search engine, cannot point to the sources, and invents many things that could be probable, could exist, but in practice didn't exist. Um, Sadly, OpenAI used the word hallucination for these mistakes, but these are mistakes. They are not hallucinations. They are not humans. They cannot not hallucinate. So these are plain mistakes, and mistake can harm people. So there also we are worried about, for example, privacy issues, intellectual property issues. I personally am worried about, for example, any kind of censorship that is basically in this model. So you don't know if things will be in the answer or not, depending on the training data and also the guardrails that you have. We are also increasing the digital gap between people because some people can use these tools, other people cannot. So before was the internet connection, now is the how technology wise you are. And then related to that, we also can use these chatbots in certain number of languages, less than 100, and we have 7,100 languages alive still on the earth. So we are basically discriminating many languages. Many people will say, but these languages are not spoken by many people. That's true, but still we are killing the cultural diversity of our world.
Okay, um, that's really fascinating, especially, I have to kind of ask you more about censorship and specifically around languages. We see a lot around the Ukrainian Russian conflict right now in the world. And, you know, China, for example, many times censors a lot what their people see. How do you see AI kind of and playing into that more?
Yeah, so this censorship in many cases is implicit, so it's not intended also, it's not by design, but could be some of it by design and some other censorship by incompetence. So one problem, I think there are several problems, but one problem is that at least the version 3.5 of ChatGPT, so the first version that was released uh, in November, basically was giving different answers depending on the language you use for prompt.
Hmm.
So this is a problem because it's like having different knowledge. I say that it's like another Babel tower that is worse than the original because the original was different languages, but we have a single knowledge. If people get different answers from different languages, now we have different knowledges, and that's a mess. And this is a problem. Now they fix this. I don't think because of this problem, but because of the last version of ChatGPT seems to be only trained in English, and if you ask the same question in different languages, you get the same answer. So basically, it's the answer from the English American culture, and this again is a problem because basically you have a cultural colonization of the world. Everything is based on the knowledge or basically gathered from English in the world, that mainly US and other former British colonies. So yes, we need to solve this problem because otherwise we not only have the digital gap I mentioned before, we have a cultural gap that will be increasing.
And could potentially, I mean, also create different. I believe gaps in knowledge also could potentially create different classes of people, right? Like some people that have knowledge and some people don't, because knowledge is power in a way. It's a
Yes,
way to
I
control
mean,
power.
education and knowledge is power. So, and basically, when people also talk about human augmentation and things like long-termism, basically to survive more than 100 years, and that also is increasing the inequality in the world because not all people have, for example, the financial resources to basically access these technologies.
Hmm. So, how, in kind of the practical sense, how do you see the balance to need to innovate, in ChatGPT and other space, and at the same time, we kind of need to control and regulate and really provide some guidelines about how we distribute this information?
Yeah, so in your question is implicit this, I think, fallacy that innovation is killed by regulation. I don't believe in that.
You don't agree with that? That makes
Yeah,
sense. Okay.
there was a very interesting article in The Economist a while ago that explained why that's not true. I think it's the opposite. I think good regulation triggers the right innovation. Because when we talk about innovation, we think that all innovation is good. But really today, not all innovation is good. There are many applications of AI that are very innovative, but they are not ethical, so they shouldn't exist. So we need to distinguish good innovation from bad innovation. Now, a good regulation, and this is hard to do, so it's not trivial,
Yeah.
triggers the best innovation because basically is in some sense respecting human rights. It has some moral values behind, and the main incentive is the well-being of all the people, not, for example, obtaining more money or getting rich only few people. So I think we can do both things, but it's not easy. And sadly, I haven't seen too many good proposals of regulation in this world of generative AI. Maybe if you see what China did in April, that published some initial proposal for comments. I
Right.
would say if you take all the political part out and you keep the technical part, I think it's
Yeah.
quite a good list of problems that they are thinking, and it's the best I have seen so far. So you can do something sensible if you really worry about what are the problems. The problem will be not only that we're talking about different knowledges or increasing the inequality, increasing the digital gap, but also we are talking about things like the misinformation. So this can be used to create a lot of fake news much faster and better than before in many languages. So if we change that and we can go to videos, for example, in the future, anyone can do a video with your face, with your voice, and then
Yeah.
saying whatever you want. This will basically break everything what we have done in digital communication in the last, let's say, 20 years. We will see a video or an image and we will not be able to believe it because it could be false. And that changes the world a lot because the world has changed thanks to that. For example, thanks to social media, we are aware of things that happen in many countries that try to basically don't be uh, known. So basically, human rights violations that are hard to track. But if now we can invent them, we are getting back to 100 years ago where we have the only way is to have a person seeing that, and then you need to trust that the person is telling the truth.
I w- the whole concept of deep fakes is really fascinating to me, to be honest, because I think it can, inspire a goodness potentially, but it also has so much potential for evil. So, what are some of the tools we can use to know, is this real or is this fake? Are there tools being developed around that?
There are tools being developed already, for example, for maybe to know if a text was created by ChatGPT, or for example, to check if an image is not fake or not. But these are not perfect, so the best ones will go through. I think humans can check this thing, but sometimes they don't do the work to do that. For example, in images, you can always check in the boundaries of things, in the background, if the background matches the person involved, if everything is coherent or consistent, if it makes sense. So sometimes you see small things, and if, especially if you zoom, that say, okay, this has some mistakes, and then it's not real. But in the future, this will be even better because the system will improve. Maybe in 1 year, we will not be able to recognize uh, real things from fake things. Also, this can be used the other way around. For example, there was an article a few months ago where someone was saying that some criminals were using prosthetics, like a six finger or something different in their body, because then they can claim later that that's not their video because they have six fingers, so that must be a fake video, so that was not a real video. So this has both ways. So we are entering in a very complicated world where basically we cannot know if a video is true or not. And this will be a problem because it will be like TV, everything is fiction, or like movies, everything is a fiction. And now we only can trust people seeing things directly.
Yeah. And I always think, critical thinking is one of those skills that we need to practice constantly, right? I feel that now with social media and everything like that, we're just kind of, I see that even with my kids, they trust, oh, this lady looks like this every time, and it's could be highly modified video, but they take it as is. So, what are some of the questions, I guess, that we can ask as we look at some of this information? What are some critical thinking questions each one of us can ask to tell, is this something I want to act on, or maybe I shouldn't because it is fake, and not react
Oh,
to this?
yes, a very good question. I think education is the key. So we need to educate people, and also instead of trying to fight these tools, uh, basically taking them and use them in a different way. For example, I will try to teach children the difference between all these things, like trying to say, don't believe everything you see, don't believe everything you read, don't believe everything you hear, because this is the real world today. And that implies, for example, a lot of people is worried about using chatbots in education because people will basically don't, maybe in the future they will not learn how to write because a tool will do that. We already don't do too much handwriting because we are typing everything.
Right.
And in some languages that means other things. So we should train these skills that we have. So we should have workshops where people still need to write. For example, I will say, this is the answer from ChatGPT. So you don't need to use it. Here, I give it to you. Tell me what is wrong. And so they do fact checking. Tell me how you will do it better. So they do analytical thinking, critical thinking. So I think we need to use them to improve education in the ways that are really human. Because until today, I think, we are still using too much memory for education, like memory is education. But with these tools, memory is perfect. Doesn't make any sense to keep testing memory. We need to test other skills, and this is the next step. So we need to adapt, like we adapted for the calculator or we adapted for the computer. We need to adapt to these new tools.
Yeah, and right, you can't kind of bury your head in the sand like an ostrich and pretend nothing's happening, right? And there's no change in the world, and this AI thing where I'm just not going to adopt it because it will just get. I think it's going to evolve a lot of things, and at such speed that you'll really fall behind if you don't take the first step. The question again is, how do you stay use your critical thinking skills and use it to your advantage, really, not to your detriment. I wanted
Yeah,
to
but
kind of talk
it's a
about.
good example. It's a good
Yeah,
example use of the ostrich, because maybe that's also fake news.
right.
So ostriches don't do that.
Oh, they don't put their head in the sand.
No,
I
this
did
is
not know
a
that.
metaphor that someone invented, and
See, I should verify my sources right there.
no, but this
Um,
is common knowledge. This is common knowledge. With all people think it's true, then it's true.
that's right, and that's the danger, whether it's of the ostrich or the AI, right? And what it tells us is that if we
Exactly.
don't question and verify our sources, we can be in a lot of trouble. Um, So, what are some of the ways, as you look into the future, what are some of the ways you would like people to kind of work alongside AI, right? We know it's not going away. So how ways can we adapt? Specific ways.
So first, I will say that the goal should be well-being of people, and that means most of the time trying to complement people, not to replace people. So basically, be our partners on whatever. So, for example, robots can do all the heavy lifting of physical work. Why not? They can
Yeah.
do boring jobs. Why not? So basically, if we do everything, if they do everything that we don't want to do, that will be the perfect world, because in that world we can do what we really want to do. Today, most people in the world are basically trying to survive in many, many countries. So for example, we two are privileged persons that do
Yeah.
a work that we like. I hope, in your
Yeah.
case, I do some work that I don't like, but I have the privilege to do some work that I like. So imagine a world where anyone can basically develop the potential, and if you are serving society, you receive a universal salary. That world will be amazing. Will be a new renaissance, a real renaissance, because will not be only for the noble people, will be for everyone, everybody. And this is the way I would like to see the future, that we can build a world where we all do whatever we uh, can be better at, and at the same time we have the same opportunities, and at the same time we basically have the same rights.
Mm. I love that idea of it. I've recently read a book that's called Player Piano. It's been written in the 1950s by Kurt Vonnegut, and he kind of described the kind of dystopian world where, essentially robots do everything, and there's a few doctors, PhDs that manage the robots, and the rest have like a minimum payment that and allows them to live well and spend time in leisure, and it causes its own potential social issues. Um, it's something he imagined many years ago, and when I've read this book recently, it kind of made me think of where we are with AI today, right? As we get this more leisure time, do most of us even have the imagination to create something where we can spend our time in ways that benefits the society or improves things, right? It's its own challenge in a way.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Kurt Vonnegut is one of my favorite science fiction writers,
Yeah.
but I haven't read that one, so I will read it.
Yeah, it's excellent. I enjoyed it.
As you said, it's like talking about this time, but the problem is that any time that some people have power, they instead of using that power in a fair way, they use it on their own benefit, and maybe that's human. But
Yeah,
then to be human is not the best, like because we do all these things to other people. For example,
right.
you see this that the people say humans and animals, and they forget that we are also animals, and that's why we have wars and we have other conflicts. And we shouldn't forget that, because if we forget that, we will never be better.
Yeah,
I
it's
would say
very
that maybe animals are better than us in many ways. Like if you see elephants are one of the most kind
yeah.
animals. They don't kill any other animal. So we should
There's
learn
things
from
we can learn
elephants.
from them, right? Yeah, I would agree so. I would agree
And they are
so.
one of the largest animals on earth. So they could basically do it, but they don't do it. So why we
Right.
should learn from them?
Yeah, there's so many things I think where we can improve, and, I took my son to a World War II museum just actually this weekend in New Orleans, and it just reminded me of the horrors, right, that wars can cause.
Yeah.
And if from another side, it also causes a lot of innovation. The atomic bomb probably wouldn't have been created if World War II never existed. And whether
Yeah,
it's
that
good
was
or
a bad
bad, we're
innovation.
dealing with that.
That was a bad innovation, the atomic
That
bomb.
was a bad innovation. But I was thinking actually, the father of AI recently said he retired from Google because he wants to now go and talk about the dangers of AI around the world. And in my mind, I kind of compared that to the atomic bomb. When we were creating it, we were not thinking about all the implications, I think, of what that technology could cause. We created something, an incredible technology. Um, without kind of thinking through everything that it could potentially, the horror that it caused, right, as a result of it. And so, just to kind of get back to AI and innovation in ChatGPT and ethics, what are some of the things that now that we have that experience, right? Hopefully, we can learn from history of things being invented without thinking through all the repercussions of that invention. What can we do as a society now to kind of prevent AI from taking a similar turn?
Yeah, well, I disagree with Geoff Hinton in the sense that I don't think this apocalyptic future will come soon. Even they may not come because that implies that we can create something that is smarter than us.
Yeah,
But if being smarter than us implies, for example, saving the earth, maybe they should destroy us. So we are the parasites of Earth. So we are not as good as we think we are. So we always say we are the superior beings on Earth, but in some senses, in other senses, we are not. So
yeah,
this is like a problem. So what we can do, I would say that I prefer to worry about what we discussed before, about the current risk. So it's a pity that he is talking about future risks that may never happen and is not thinking on the current ones. And for example, recently we had invited Jan LeCun to do one of our distinguished seminars. It's in YouTube, and he is on our side in the sense that there are other risks that exist today, like, for example, bad uses of chatbots. Uh, I don't know if there was a case in Belgium in March where a person committed suicide after talking to an avatar and chatbot for 6 months. And if you see the last conversation, basically the chatbot helped the person to commit the suicide. So this is what I'm more worried today, like people losing the the common sense of not realizing that you are not talking to a person, that this system don't have any conscious, this system don't have any intention, this system don't have any sentience, but because they are so coherent and they write so well, people believe that they are kind of intelligent, although they are in a different way to our intelligence. So I would say that what we need to do is we need to regulate to basically uh, do something that was a principle that I push in the new set of ACM principles for responsible agreement systems to basically ensure that the system is legitimate and competent. That is, we did the risk analysis, ethical risk analysis, and we proved that the system has more benefits than harm. And then we checked that the people doing this had the competence, not only technical, but also administrative competence to do the system as intended. And if we do that, basically we will not create drones that kill civilians, or, for example, chatbots that can be used as psychologists and so on. So we need to basically don't create any application that can harm people. And there are many applications today that exist that are non-ethical. And this is part of the main problem that we have today.
yeah. And how do we do that? Because as these applications are scaling right now at a great rate, right? Everyone says we do AI. Every company is making that announcement, whether they do it or not. And is this an audit kind of that every company has to have, like a capability maturity audit? How do we make sure that, because there's going to be new releases and updates, today they might be compliant, 3 months from now they're not.
No, this
And
should be more like if you do an audit, it's too late. If you audit the model, you're already legitimizing the model, so that's too late. So the model shouldn't exist if it's non-ethical. So I would say that we need to regulate in the way that, for example, today, any large infrastructure project needs to do, for example, environmental impact analysis. The
mhm.
same thing. We need to do, like, say, a human rights impact analysis. That's compulsory. And someone that really knows how to do it did it. And this will be a new type of business. And second, we may have some kind of similar to ISO 9000, where we basically check that the process to create a new system has all the right steps to be a responsible AI or responsible algorithm at the end. And this also doesn't exist, so we need to regulate that. But It took some years to do ISO 9000, but we can do the same for the process of building responsible software.
That's fascinating. There's so much work ahead of us. How would anyone kind of listening to this? How would they reach out to your, AI Institute? What are the ways to engage you or some of your colleagues in these kind of reviews?
Yes, I will suggest to go to our website. It's ai.northsystem.edu. There you will find all information. There is one section on research, but also another section on this responsible AI practice that I mentioned. And there you can contact the people that is in charge of helping industry on doing responsible AI. And we are already working with several companies, and we would like to work with more, because then also we can scale and build our team to even have more impact.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ricardo. This was an amazing discussion. I learned so much as a result of it. And I look forward to seeing all the other great communication that comes out from the Institute and from you in the future. Thanks for attending today.
Thank you, Vicky.
Take care.
Bye bye.